Okay. Do I just start then?
Yeah, well, let me introduce you. So, hello, everyone. This is Margot Buckles, and you're with Ask a Washington Beekeeper. And tonight we have Alex Wickstrom with us, and he's going to be talking about wasps in the bee world. And he sent me a little bio, and he says he's a stinging insect control specialist. He solves people's wasp or bee problems in a holistic way. The wasps he collects are used in immunotherapy treatments for people who have severe allergic reactions. He is studying to become a master melittologist through Oregon State University. And I'm going to let him introduce anything else about himself that he wants to. So go ahead, Alex.
Hey, folks. All right, so I hope everyone's having a good summer. It's been quite hot, a lot of wasps going on. So for this presentation, bear with me because sometimes my screen will turn off my camera, so my face won't be visible, and I don't know why. There it goes. So this whole talk is 99% of it is from published articles. So if this is visible, you can snapshot it, or if you really want a copy of it, I can send it to you via email. You just let me know. So if you want to do your own research, kind of look through the stuff that I have gone through, and then some of it has also been by my own observations that I'm going to show you today. Um, so, um, so the what I'm really trying to get for this whole thing is two things: to help you truly understand the importance of wasps in our ecology in total. They're just absolutely important, and then how that affects you as a beekeeper. So for questions, let's save it for the end, only because I find that if I ask questions in the middle of it, I get way behind time. So we'll just try to save them for the end, write them down and whatnot. There should be. Oh yeah, that's the next one. So what we're going to talk about is our relationship with wasps, which goes back far. What is a wasp? Do wasps have a purpose? Then the biology of wasps, and then honeybees and wasps. So those are the points we're gonna get through. So for me, um, it's already been kind of described, but a lot of what I do is mainly wasps. I do some bee stuff as well, obviously, because I'm trying to become a master melittologist. But one day there will be a master vespitologist, which doesn't exist. There is no vespitology, but one day I hope to invent that name, let that name come, because that would be study of wasps. Um, and so, but anyways, uh, so I do a lot of removals throughout the summer for people, helping them solve their stinging insect issues. I collect them for venom a majority of the time, and then I also do a lot of education. It's like this. I love wasps. They're so fascinating. I think a lot of beekeepers are missing out on the level of wasps, and so I feel like beekeepers, it's kind of a start. They deal with wasps already, and a lot of them just hate them. But we'll kind of go through this together so that we can kind of really see the intricacies of wasps. All right, so now our relationship. So humans and us go way back. Humans and wasps go way back, ancient times. Even besides this here, they've seen structures and artwork from um, Mesopotamia, having bee-shaped things, hornets. Some of them worshipped them. Some of them sought them as punishment. But here's a vase. It's a Roman or Greek vase from 540 BC, and these guys here on the pottery for some reason are naked, but they're getting stung by what it looks like some form of hornet. It looks like some sort of Asian hornet, and they are. It's, I believe what the historian said about this vase is it's possible it could be some sort of punishment from a Greek god. So for the most part, wasps are seen as negative throughout human history. The majority. of mankind sees wasps as horrible. Here are some things that I've seen, heard about wasps. They sting more than once, which is very true. Attack for no reason, which is very false. They're annoying while eating outside because they come to your food. That is very true. Depends on the species, but yes, that is true. If you have a hummingbird feeders, they'll attack your hummingbirds. That is very true. Um, and they can at times attack your honeybees, but we'll get into that. They have no real purpose. That is absolutely false. In fact, more scientists delve into it, the more we're learning that they are equally as important as bees. They just have a different purpose. And then they nest in your home and property. That's very true. And so many other things I've heard about wasps. And yeah, let's dig into it. So, wasps are very complicated, even more complicated than bees. But I've tried to put this slide together to make it as consistent as possible, not consistent, easy as possible for pretty much anyone to understand. So the important thing to notice about wasps is their behavior, is their social structure really determines on how they're going to react to you. So you have hornets, yellow jackets. Those are truly social. Truly social wasps that live in colonies, they have a worker caste division of labor. So if you look here from 1 to 1, so truly social, worker caste division of labor, just like honeybees. Honeybees are very similar in that regard. In fact, some scientists consider yellow jackets the honeybees of the wasp world. I kind of disagree, but anyways, uh, hornets and yellow jackets. There's sometimes other solitary species that do in South America that can be solitary or social, but none of them exist here in North America. Then you have your semi-social. They're basically individualized or organized individuals working together. So common one is paper wasps here. The other species like hover wasps, we don't have any here. But paper wasps, they have a what's called um, it's almost like an aggregation to a degree, but not quite, because they do have a form of caste, worker caste, but they're all have their ovaries developed. They're all able to lay eggs that are fertilized, unlike worker yellow jackets, which are sterile, can only lay male eggs because they're haplodiploids, um, just like just like honeybees. Um, so their behavior is very different. Then you have your solitary wasps. So here in Washington, and this goes for the majority of Washington, mud daubers are some of the most visible solitary wasp. There's many others, but mud daubers are most people see. I get calls for that all the time. In fact, I was in Lake Stevens just driving around helping people because they got calls for mud daubers and they thought it was they're entering their house that I was, oh my God, I got wasp in my house. But it was just mud daubers. And so they're solitary, meaning that they don't have a full colony. They're just by themselves, an individual female or sometimes a male. Oh, there goes my, come back here. Wait, there we go. Okay. Sometimes a male, and they will be by themselves their whole life, and they'll never see their children, if you want to call them that. They usually die before then. So most beekeepers know this, but I don't know everybody's uh, skill level in this regard. So I just go through it. So bees, they typically eat pollen. They're usually thick-bodied. They have no silver hair on the face. They're often very hairy. Obviously, although some bees aren't that hairy, so sometimes it can be tricky. But bees will typically, unless they're males, always have pollen collecting hairs on their leg or belly. Um, of the females, like I mentioned in the statement there. They have stout legs and relatively few spines. I'm going to show you pictures here in a second, just in case anybody that really wants to know the difference. And then with wasps, they're going to be typically eating animal protein the majority of the time. And then they have a skinny body for the most part, and then often silvery hairs, which I find to be very reflective compared to bee hairs. They're a little bit different, but many yellow jacket species, especially male yellow jackets, tend to be very hairy. Um, uh, but wasps, for the most part, are generally hairless. They don't have pollen collecting hairs on their scopa, on their forelegs. Um, and then they have spiny legs many times. On their joints, there's usually spines, and they're usually pretty thin, tubular structures. And then, so here's comparisons. Um, that these are all from the internet because it was hard for me to get all these pictures myself. But here, if you can see my mouse, this is a paper wasp right here. And what's important is most people are going to see them when they're flying or they landed, but mainly when they're flying. So if you're looking at it and it has this V shape and the body is almost parallel with the legs, that is going to be likely a paper wasp, or some others, mod dubbers do the same thing. But paper wasps will commonly do this, and they're semi-social, completely different life cycle, which we'll discuss in a little bit. And then also yellow jackets, you can see here, they're very stout little gals, and their waist is not very visible. Normally their legs are tucked in if they're flying fast, but if they're kind of hovering around you, they're gonna let their legs loose, but they're not gonna be like this. They're gonna be more of a three-shape pattern. And then honeybees, they're very similar shape to the yellow jacket, but they have um, if you look here, they have um, a paddle. Basically, that's part of their scopa, and that's where they collect a lot of pollen. And you guys usually know that. Um, and their legs will typically hang down the majority of the time, while yellow jackets not always. They usually like to fly with their legs tucked in. So, and also the honeybee's hairy. And then here you can see the other parts when they're laying down. You can see the stark differences in both color and hairiness and the leg shapes. Look how, chubby the legs are. And then here it's pretty thin, just like these right here as well. And you can see a little bit of hair, but not a lot. This one, lots of hair, lots and lots of hair. All right. One of the main points here is, do wasps have a purpose? So I'm going to start with solitary wasp. So this is a solitary species, super tiny. This is probably about the size of a pinhead, honestly, maybe even smaller. Very tiny wasp. Um, I don't like saying the Latin name because I can never say it right, so it's going to be called the Lopez wasp. And so this wasp is basically a parasitic wasp. So I'm read a little snippet from here. So this wasp was used to control mealybugs in cassava, which is a dietary staple in Africa. It would parasitize the larva for the wasp to propagate. In the 1990s, this wasp had its full potential used in 26 African nations, an area covering over 2.7 million square kilometers. To this day, the wasp has gained permanent control of the mealybug, saving the U.S. at least $200 million. It has also saved many Africans from famine. So this tiny little wasp has done so much for our agriculture. And so, Dad, and that's just one species, and there's so many more that can be so valuable to us in our agriculture. Excuse me. So I find that very fascinating, such a tiny little thing. So here, paper wasps, and just a quick um, biology of them. They are, since they're semi-social, like I mentioned, they don't have an official queen, so they're going to have a dominant female. Sometimes you can call them queens, but they're really not, because if you look at all these females here, they can all become a queen if they wanted to. They all have their ovaries developed. In the beginning of spring, they all have semen. They're all impregnated by males from previous seasons, and they can even be impregnated during that same season if there's males in existence just a little bit later, because sometimes they create males really soon. Um, but what they do is that dominant female will start a nest on her own, and other females will join her in spring, and they'll fight to see who's going to actually take control over the nest. And whoever wins is the dominant, and the other ones become subordinate. And egg laying is controlled by the dominant female. And so, like for instance, if you remove that nest, what they can do is they can just rebuild it because, or even if the dominant female dies, the other ones will just assume dominance and be the new quote unquote queen. So that's why commonly the subordinates be called gynes because they're potential queens. A gyne is a potential queen. It's basically princess, if you want to call it that. But here it's really interesting is paper wasps can be used in agriculture. And here's some evidence. So in the 1920s, a species of paper wasp was used in the cotton fields of the Caribbean islands of St. Vincent and St. Kitts. The paper wasps were encouraged to nest around the edges of the field to control cotton leafworm, which was destroying the crops. They were easily movable due to the small umbrella-shaped combs, which sometimes they're called umbrella wasps. They can be placed anywhere where needed. This process was also used in the Philippines with to help with sap-sucking leafhoppers. And then I state I'm honestly very surprised this is not used more often. Uh, Paper wasps are very useful. The majority of them are actually pretty docile, especially if it's early in the morning. You can put that nest in your hand and you wouldn't get stung. Um, they can be a little aggressive if it's really hot during the day and you really mess with them, really close to the nest. But their attack range is very, very low. With it's like 2 feet. Once you get 2 feet, there's a chance they'll sting you, but not always. Sometimes they'll just move out of the way, and they typically will like to fly away before they sting you directly, unless they feel they're super under threat. But what's great is you can take them, you can put them in a box with a little exit hole, and you can move them around the farm on the edges. And since they're so docile, you don't have to worry about stings. And they do a lot of control for caterpillar, just like here in a number of years ago. So they're super important to our ecology. Now, of course, these here you see in the picture, those are European paper wasps. So that's particular species I'm not talking about. There's so many other native paper wasps that are very valuable, very, very valuable. And in fact, I'm experimenting with a greenhouse farmer that does strawberries and using paper wasps in her greenhouse to see how I can control one of her issues with caterpillars. So far, it seems I'm successful. I can't prove it yet, but it's all about experimenting, trying things out, seeing how it goes. So wasps, this is how I like to put it. This is one of the key features of wasps to bees. So bees pollinate the plant. They're responsible primarily for reproduction of the plant. They do a lot of pollination for plants compared to other insects. Wasps, though they're not the only predatory insect, they are the majority of predatory insects within the world. And that includes parasitism too, parasitic wasps. And so the the way to look at it is bees pollinate the plant while wasps protect the plant. And so here with this little chart, this is some research done. I don't remember by um, it was I don't know, I remember what paper. I can't read it. But anyways, um, it's about pheromones and how plants communicate with wasps. So if there's a plant, like for instance, if you see here, they show a little chart of a caterpillar eating the plant. Well, some plants will produce this compound, excuse me, called pheromones. And these pheromones are volatile chemicals. And when they're released, they're very attractive to mainly wasps, some other predatory insects, but mainly wasps. And what will happen is that wasp will go to it because they know that scent, that pheromone scent, means that there's a juicy caterpillar waiting for for that wasp. So then the wasp goes, picks it off, and effectively potentially saving the plant. So if you have a plant that has wasps all over it, that's because that plant is screaming, "Help me, help me." And sometimes it also has to do with dew and sap. They'll be consuming, but sometimes it means that they have an issue, pest issue. So wasps are a really good signal to see that how well your plants are doing. So if you have tons of wasp over a plant, you should look at that plant, see what's going on with it, especially trees. So now to yellow jackets. This is your most beekeepers' main focus, and I totally understand that. And most other people's focus. Yellow jackets are the reason why wasps get a bad rap, and I totally get it. But one thing positive I wanted to share about yellow jackets is their ability to control pests in a magnificent way. So, um, uh, a few years ago, because of my constant seeing of wasps, seeing how much they consume it in one day, especially since I will actually keep wasps in a greenhouse for production to get more for the wasp for venom. Um, and I see how many caterpillars they can consume in each day. This particular species called Arenaria, it's a very common yellow jacket seen, a big ball of paper in the tree or in the eaves of your home. They love caterpillars. That's one of their favorites. Sometimes they'll have crickets, but mainly soft-bodied arthropods. And so after I did the math, along with some other research papers, I calculated this. So a single Arenaria nest, which is the yellow jackets, can consume 77 pounds or more of arthropods in one season, which is about 7 months long. On average, there is one nest per forested acre. This is an average. And if you add up all the Arenaria nests in Snohomish County and total it to the number of arthropods eaten by all these nests by weight, it would amount to over 27 million pounds in one season. Now, that's only counting the forested area that's designated by the U.S. forests in Snohomish County. That's only that. I'm not counting the city area, which they nest as well. I'm just counting forested area. So that's 27 million. So that could be double that number or triple in just Snohomish County alone. Think about that, 27 million pounds of insects. So, and then also that doesn't include the other 7 species because I'm talking about one species, Arenaria. There's other species of yellow jacket. There's about 7 others in Snohomish County, roughly, and they also consume possibly even more. I haven't done the calculations. It's really hard, but these ones were a little easier. But if you took it and applied that parameter to the United States of all its forests, that's designated by the U.S. U.S. forests. I don't know what it's called. Um, it would amount to 15.4 billion pounds. And again, that's one species, only counting the forested areas designated by the government. So it could be, again, triple that size of volume. So in the billions of pounds of insects consumed. And some species also consume dead meat as well. So wasp benefits in other ways. So here, uh, wasps actually do a surprising amount of pollination, quite a bit. It's quite fascinating. As I started learning it a number of years ago, training myself about wasps. Um, so there's actually a hellebore orchids, certain species that require Vespin wasps, which are basically yellow jackets, hornets, and they are critical to their pollination. So what happens is, so if you look at this picture, this blurry one, looks like a yellow jacket, which it is, I believe, um, and it's a male. And what the males do is that the orchid produces a volatile chemical, pheromone, but it's different form, and to make it smell like a female, because the females will produce these pheromones And so when they go to it, they think it's a female, and the male does his male thing. And but while he's doing it, the the orchid deposits pollen on his hairy abdomen. I mean, thorax, sorry, on his hairy thorax. So that's why one I theorize why males are possibly so hairy is because they're utilized for pollination. Because males primarily get their food source from flowers, nectar. Sometimes they're not really given it a whole lot inside the nest of the yellow jacket. So that's one species of beautiful orchids that we could not have without yellow jackets. There's also some other species, figwort flowers, hogweed, ivy, African milkweed, all require um, species of wasp. And so these are these two other pictures here. This is a great golden digger, I believe, and it's on blackberries. Has a bit of hair on the thorax, pollinating a bit. And then here, this is a European paper wasp I found sitting in some um, um, dandelions. And I thought it was a really good picture because just tons of pollen on that little gal, and she was really enjoying her day. All right, so a lot of people know about fig wasps, but I want to give a brief background. Without fig wasps, I think there's 9 species of fig that require fig wasps. Don't quote me on that, but there's a lot of figs that require fig wasps. Um, and so what happens is that these figs, when the flowering part of the fig, it inverts. It's an inverted flower. So the pollen is on the inside of the fruit. So the only way for for it to be pollinated is if a female wasp drills its way into that fruit, um, lays an egg, and then the eggs hatch. And when they hatch, there's males that hatch in there and females, and they mate, and then they drill their way out. The males stay in there. The males stay in the fig and just die, and then the females go out and do the process again. That's a very short version of it. And so that's the only way. And while she gets out of the fig, that's how she pollinates. Keeps pollen with her, and when she goes into the next fig, um, that's where the pollination happens. So quite fascinating, really. So here's the inside of it. I believe these were males here, and then these are the females. So the males don't have wings. They just look like weird little cretins. But the females are all beautiful with wings. Okay, so now this part I find fascinating because it is about hornets, and a particular Asian hornet. Um, See, I thought I would remember the name of the hornet, but it's written down here somewhere. But it does seed dispersal. So Vulentina, Vespa Vulentina. So what happens is this hornet, as you can see right here, this is a tree that once it's pollinated, it drops its seed with these little strings attached. And when it does that, it emits a volatile. Again, with those volatiles, those chemical communications with wasps, it's amazing. Um, but it smells like prey. And what happens is it attracts this particular species of hornet, Vespa velutina. I don't think it has a common name. Um, and since it smells like prey, what it's going to do is that it's gonna try and get it. So it's going to try to chew, because what they do is they typically will chew up their prey into a meatball. That's the actual scientific term, meatball. And they put it together with their mandibles, chew it up. But she's trying to do it with this. And what happens is that when she grabs it, she drops it near her nest because she realizes it's kind of useless. And what's interesting about these seeds, though, is the particular species here, the Aquileria gynopsis and the Gonotysilus, These species of tree seed are only viable for a very short time. And so because of that, they rely on this hornet to grab it and plop it in a proper area that's shaded typically, which hornet's nest will typically be nested in shaded areas, with a little bit of sun. And so, and when that happens, then the seed dispersal is um is accomplished. And so here, I think, yeah, okay, I think I have this time I had the, no, I exited out. Okay, so there's a video. I love showing the video, and I'm pretty sure I can show it this time. I know I showed it last time, and then do I know I did it last time. I gotta figure out how I did it last time. Here we go. Can you guys see that video, or is it stages video right now?
Sorry, we can see the video.
Oh, you can. Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So here it is. Here's the hornet getting on there, and she's like, "Ooh, it's food," and she's gonna tear off that end piece, and then it's gonna drop, just like so. And it's usually a little bit too heavy for her, so then she flies off, but then watches it as she flies off with it. Doesn't work too well. Whoosh, just goes straight down. And so, and that is how that seed, that's how that tree exists. Um, okay, I think. Okay, is it back to normal now? Can you guys see the biology of wasps? Sorry.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
It's okay. No worries.
It
Okay.
takes me a little while to get to the microphone.
It's okay. No worries at all. So, yeah, so I've always found that fascinating. That tree requires that hornet to survive. So another important thing. And again, that is just a tip of the iceberg, because the more scientists are digging into wasps, the more we realize how incredibly valuable they are within the ecology of the world, and that they are just as important as bees. It's just unfortunately they have a different job, and because of that, they're hunters. They have more tendency to be aggressive, just like most carnivorous creatures. Okay. Uh, so here we have yellow jackets. So this is obviously where your guys' main attraction is. Um, so yellow jackets are completely social. So they have a queen, workers. So how it works is in springtime, depending on the species, but for the most part around April and May, a queen wakes up, just like you hear, and she's going to groom herself, and she's been overwintering in diapause, and she's been impregnated last year, by other males from other nests. And so she's going to wake up, clean herself, and she's going to find a source of carbohydrates for to fatten herself up, because she lost a lot of weight in diapause. And then she also will find some protein sources. Um, Sometimes she's just large enough where not physical, solid food can pass through her intestine through the waste. But workers, they're too small and they can't pass physical food, so they have to have it in liquid form, which I'll explain in a minute. But then what she does, she's gonna find a place to nest. We're still figuring out how she decides that, but then once she finds it, she's gonna go and grab um, some wood fibers from typically most species like solid wood that's been photo degenerated by the sun. So it's sun bleached, kind of grayish. That's their favorite. Some other species will use only decaying wood, so the wood is very the nest color is very vibrant, very orange color. And then once she finds it, she's gonna make it into this little it's like umbrella thing, but not umbrella wasp. But once she finishes it, it's gonna be in a complete capsulated. And that's how you could tell it's gonna be a yellow jacket nest because it's gonna be encapsulated like this. And then she's gonna start hunting food. She's gonna mix it up into a meatball, and she's gonna give it to every single individual larva, and they're gonna consume that. And in return, as they eat that larva, the larva eat food, they don't poop yet. So they're not gonna, that's not gonna come out. It's all stored within their body until they hit um, the right before they pupate. So the last instar stage. And as that gets near, they basically, then they do just one giant poop, basically. And there'll be this like a black tar, and it'll sit at the bottom of each cell when it's finished, and then it pupates and then hatches out, just like honeybees. And but while it's larva, because it has all that protein that it's consuming constantly, it can regurgitate a juice, and it's a very rich protein carbohydrate juice, and the workers consume that because they can't pass solids like the larger queen can. So they rely on the larva to consume protein through the larva. So they must have larva to really survive to have that proper protein to continue living. So here's the stages, and it gets bigger and bigger, and it keeps getting larger and larger. And this is a bald-faced hornet nest. This was actually a future queen hatching out. Um, but one quick fun fact about bald-faced hornets is they're not a hornet. They're actually a yellow jacket. They're in the genus Dolichovespila, which also the common Arenaria, like we talked about, is also a yellow jacket because in the genus Dolichovespila. The genuses that are in hornet are called Vespa. So if it says V, Valentunia or V mandarinia, means Vespa. Um, there's also Vespula, which is also another species of yellow jacket. But yellow jackets are in two genuses, and the Dolicho Vespula and Vespula. And the subterranean species are the ones that are Vespula. Oh, my camera turned off again. Oh, oh well. Um, so here the nests get really big. This is a nest called Alicensis. It's a common yellow jacket that we see a lot. But this one was really big. It was in a stump, and this is my picture. It's kind of a bad picture, but grainy. But it had many. These were actually two different. These are in the same stump, two different nests. It's crazy. But this had, let's see, I think there was one more layer below the picture, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is technically a layer because this is where the queens reside when they hatch. But yeah, that's quite a many layers. They don't normally get this big, but sometimes they do. And so when it starts getting that point, the they start um, the nest starts changing very dramatically. And when that happens, um, the um, uh, the nest starts becoming more aggressive, and this is why. At least this is where more it's a bit of a theory. It's very strongly suggested because of how it works, but we actually don't technically know exactly why they get aggressive. We just really think that this is the answer. So how it works is when the queen has finished laying worker eggs, she realizes that she needs to biologically start producing male offspring and her future queen offspring because the workers are sterile. They will not be able to mate. They can only lay a male egg, and that's policed, and they're not allowed to lay those. So what she does is that she picks some certain areas. We don't know exactly how it works. We're still learning. But and the workers make extra large cells, and these cells will either be within. They'll just expand old cells on the outside, typically on the edges. So you can see here. See how the edges, there's only stuff here. These are all male and queens. So typically males are placed in old cells, but the queens are typically placed in brand new cells. And um, and so when she does that, then the workers, start feeding when the eggs hatch, they start feeding. We don't know how the queens become queens. We don't know if it's extra food that they provide for them or if it's a chemical um, um, uh, signal, or if it's just the size of the comb cell. We don't know, which is amazing that we don't know that simple fact. But somehow they decide how many they're going to produce. So as those queens are growing, they then they go into larval stage and then they pupate and they start hatching out. And as they hatch out, they don't leave the nest right away. All these gynes, which are potential queens, all these gynes um, start feeding from the other larvae. And so the workers have a bit of less food available. So they start substituting from other areas like flowers. And that's also when they start invading picnics. And these are subterranean species very commonly that do this. And they start going for sugars of all sorts. And also these larger larvae that are queen larvae, they're eat a lot more, at least we assume, because they're so much larger. So they technically should be eating more, is our thought. And so the workers are working extra hard to feed, so they got double the work than rearing workers. They're rearing queens, and the males don't help. The males, the only thing I theorize that they do some cleaning around the nest, but for the most part, the males just sit around until they're ready to fly off and mate. So the males consume some nectar on the inside. I mean, that regurgitated juice, but they also will use flowers as well, like I mentioned. And um, and so as that, we theorize the nest becomes coming in a panic mode, and they're just so aggressive. They have all these queens they need to protect. These are the generation they have for next year, and they're just going crazy. They need to get everything as fast as possible, so they're kind of desperate. And that's when we get into summer, which we're getting into late summer now, and that's when a lot of them are doing the reproductive phase. And that's when they start sometimes trying to go for honeybees. And that's why we start um, getting that issue. So here's a picture um, of them mating here. Um, so um, as they do that, they start like for honeybees. It's mainly the subterranean species that will affect your honeybees. What's important to remember, the species that we talked about, Arenaria, and also the bald-faced hornet, which is called Dolichovispila maculata. So they're both yellow jackets. But the Arenaria commonly do not actually affect your hives at all. Their main focus is caterpillars. So their desire to go for your hive is very low. And also the time frame that Arenaria start nesting are as early as April and start waking up. And um, there's a lot of forage and bloom and other insects very easily available for them during the season. And their cycle starts to end around this time. Some nests are starting to vacate already. A lot of the original queens have died, and there's new queens that are waiting to overwinter, fly off and overwinter, and the rest of the nest will just completely fall apart and die. Um, and so those arenarias, the time frame doesn't match, and so they're not really going to bother your honeybees. What they're going to bother you is the subterranean ones. In their season, some of them just recently started nesting, depending on where you are and species. But then they can last. Nests can last all the way till January. So during those times of dearth, there's not a whole lot of food sources available. So they're trying to supplement, and and then beekeepers will have, lots of hives available, and if you have hives that are weak, um, that's where they were focused on. And those workers are desperate for protein and carbohydrates, so they're going after your bees. Um, and then um, also the um, uh, the bald-faced hornets, we'll just call them bald-faced hornets for now. Their nesting cycle is actually very similar to that of the subterranean. So that's why the bald-faced hornets or the maculata will commonly start affecting your honeybees as well. Okay, so um, now we got that covered. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the questions. These are extra videos if we have time for it, which I don't think we will. So it's extras. Um, as we have questions, that's how I'm going to start answering your guys' questions about anything with regarding to how to keep your bees safer, weak hives from yellow jackets. So if we have anybody that has questions regarding that, um, now is the time.
Okay. So we really just have one person commenting. He said, in my opinion, yellow jackets are useful for beekeepers. If they're singling out a hive, that hive is in trouble, and the beekeeper needs to investigate why that hive is being picked on. It's my belief that yellow jackets are no match to a healthy hive.
Exactly. Um, that is right on point. So if your hive is weak, yellow jackets will pick on it. And then, like you mentioned, okay, why are they picking on it? Because a healthy hive, they can defend themselves easily. Because for me, when I had the reason I say win, because I don't currently have any honeybees because it's a long story, but a bulldozer hit it. Um, but what I would do is this hive was very aggressive hive, very spicy hive, and right next, very nearby, just within 10 feet of that hive, it was a four-tier hive, so it was very large. Right next to that hive was where I kept all my yellow jackets. And my honeybees defended them off very easily. And I would watch and I would study it. And they had no issues, none at all. I had bald-faced hornets. I had, and then uh, the common aerial yellow jacket. I had then the three other species of subterranean yellow jackets. I had all kinds of stuff there to harm those bees, but they never got harmed. So right on point. Check your hives, which right here, inspect your hive. Why are they picking on it? Um, so yeah, and then the other ones here I have here, I would prefer to see questions. So if there's any other questions, and if there's not, I'll just continue on.
I actually do have a couple more. So first of
Okay.
all, I kind of wanted to know why wasps, why you got interested in wasps.
Well, um, it started out of sort of necessity at first. Um, I really wanted to start my own business, but I also I used to be in general pest control years ago, and I started discovering that yellow jackets are cool. Like as I would do treatments on them and I would watch them, I was amazed by their camera keeps turning off. Gosh dang it. Um, uh, keeps just constantly amazed by them. So I'm like, there's so much more to these creatures than everyone's saying that they hate the world and they want to kill everyone. Um, so I started doing some research, and then one day I learned that you can for not for everyone, but there's a small amount of people that do removals for a living, and they just focus on wasps only. So I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could get into that. So then I started doing research, and then at that point, when I started my business, I just fell hardcore, head over heels with wasps. They, with the short bit that I shared with you, and to me that's short. Um, they are just so fascinating, and there's so many things to learn about them Their behavior, their intelligence is unmatched. Um, Personally, and I'm going to be a little bit more um, uh, uh, I don't know what you call it, mom goggles, I guess. Uh, I think yellow jackets have higher intelligence than honeybees. I really think that because of their ability to test the world, to understand it, more so than any other insect I've seen, except for jumping spiders. Jumping spiders have a unique ability too, but that's a whole nother topic. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how I, and ever since then I just buy constantly buy books um and there's not a whole lot of educational courses that I could really take that specifically for wasps. So everything is kind of self-taught, and that's the I would say honestly the majority of people that love wasps have to be sort of self-taught because they only go so far within the curriculum with wasps unless you're in a hymenopteron, but then they focus so much on ants. But anyways, um, yeah, that's why I love wasps. I find them more fascinating than bees. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize. So how is let's just take the yellow jackets, for example. How are the queens, um, how do they come about, I guess? Because with honeybees, all the uh, diploid eggs that are laid are the same, and the queen is created by additional royal jelly, being fed additional royal jelly. How does it work with yellow jackets?
We don't know. It's sad.
Really?
We don't know. Yep.
Huh.
In the next few years I am writing a proposal for to do this study because the study has not been done and we don't know. We have theories, but we don't know. So
We, oh,
yeah, go
that's
ahead.
interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. And there's one more question.
Hmm.
Can yellow jackets recruit others and direct nest mates to a food source?
Yes. It hasn't been heavily studied, but it kind of has been a little bit. It's been touched on. They absolutely communicate. We theorize that their communication is both by pheromone and by very intricate um, tapping vibrations to
Hmm.
the other workers on where it is, how to find it. Here's the place. And I also, what's interesting about yellow jackets is when they go foraging, they go in groups. So they go in groups of 3 to 5. If it's a really large nest, they'll go in groups of 10. And they go out, and once everyone's done, they meet back and come back to the nest. Absolutely amazing organization that they have. And it's again, there's yellow jackets are so understudied, even though they're the most common insect we deal with every day, every summer as humans for all of mankind. Yet
Well,
we know
except for mosquitoes.
okay, except for mosquitoes. But even mosquitoes are more studied. Yellow
That's
jackets are
true.
so understudied.
Hmm.
There's just something about yellow jackets in particular that it's so undercared for that it's almost on the edge of disturbing, in my opinion.
Okay. Here, what is the forage radius of yellow jackets?
So, again, that study hasn't really been done. It sort of has, but from what I have seen personally, it's about 2 miles, depending on the species. I think bald-faced hornets can have a huge radius. I personally think it could be up to 3. But you could definitely easily assume 1 mile of forage radius. Because remember, they need to hunt, and they can't, there's not like a flower patch like, okay, this will stay here for a little bit. They have to hunt everywhere. So their ability to travel I think is greatly unmatched.
Okay, I think that's it, so you can continue.
Okay, cool. Great questions. Really great questions. I really like it. So, this last part for anybody that has a weak hive and they like, I know what's wrong with it. I got to do this, but the yellow jackets are going after it, and I'm freaking out. What do I do? So, most people go straight for trapping the yellow jackets. Um, I'm not a huge fan of dead trapping, not because, I don't want them to die, but because I really don't think it's actually as successful as some people might think it is. So first of all, um, once that hive has been, we think yellow jackets can mark it, and same with bald-faced hornets. But I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty certain that it's marked. So they know food source is there, and they're going to come back to it frequently. Um, Trapping, trying to get them into a trap to eat something else, when they get into that trap and die, first of all, not all of them are going to go in that trap. Some of them just won't go in the trap, and they'll just go straight for your honeybees. And a lot of times they'll place the trap like right in front of the hive, like the classic dish of soapy water with the protein on the stick upside down. So when they get on there, they fall in the water. So you're reducing population, but the thing is, you're still attracting all those wasps to there. Not all of them are going to go to that spot, especially since they die in that spot. Uh, there's less likely for them to communicate that food source back to the nest. So you could be catching all kinds of different species that are attracted to the smell, but not the food necessarily isn't marked. So you might be pulling from a bunch of different hives that have never actually even affect your hive before. So you could actually making your problem worse possibly. Um, so what I recommend is I still have yet to hear back from some, but it's a theory of mine, and I want people to try it more often. Is distracted um, trapping, distractive trapping, whatever. Basically, you set up, you could use like a bird bath if you wanted to. You set up something similar like that, that's full of protein, particularly canned chicken. Don't know why, but like chicken of the sea, not chicken of the sea. Well, a tuna, tuna's okay. Not, but canned chicken. I just made a dumb mistake there. A canned chicken works really well. Don't know why, but it does. Um, and then also some carbohydrates. So sugar water works too. And put it in a dish that doesn't kill them. And take that dish and move it and make sure it's a little higher off the ground. Preferably like a bird bath works perfect. Put it at least 20 feet from the hive. And what will happen, at least that's the hope, is that they will go to that food source. And if you're replenishing it, that it's going to be marked. They're going to be very satisfied with that food source. And they're going to go back to the hive. And make sure it's far distance. Don't make it close to the hive. Make it far distance. And so that food source surpasses the value of your honeybee hive by far. And it's easier. They don't have to go into the hive and try to defend themselves against other honeybees that do try to poke at them. So that they're focused on that and they're not focused on your hive. So that's distractive trapping. And um, if anybody does this and finds success with it with one of their weak hives, please let me know. I want to know. I want people to try and start this little bit. Along with, you can also do entrance reducing, of course. You can do that. But also sometimes if your hive is being picked on a little bit, a few bees eaten here and there is not going to change the world. And some extra honey being eaten on the side, on the extras on the outside of the hive, is also not going to change the world. So if you see a yellow jacket around your hive, don't immediately worry. Just give it time and be observant. Observation is the key factor in this. It's just sometimes you need to sit in front of your hive and just watch it for hours. Um, if you have the time, at least an hour, I would think personally, at least this is what I did, about an hour a day, if you can afford it. When you get home from work, watch it. How are they reacting? And that can really go a long way on some preventative measures to keep your hive alive. Um, um, and then lastly, if you feel like you failed and Yellow Jackets completely tore it apart, it sucks. I understand, but it is nature. Honeybees technically aren't even a native to North America. So, and yellow jackets are native. So technically, honeybees are actually stomping on yellow jackets' turf. So keep that in mind. If it happens and your honeybees die, it's a learning experience. Learn from it. How can I prevent this next time? Um, Watching videos like this, seminars, talking with other professionals can really go a long way to really gaining your knowledge. Because if you feel like you know it, know it all, then you really know nothing. Because you always got to keep learning. And with that, that is all. So here, this is my contact info. You can take a snapshot, my phone number, email, and my website. And yeah, that's it.
So here on the east side, we get I see in the paper a certain company that collects the yellow jackets for their venom. Is that the
Hmm.
company that you work with?
Is it called Hollister Steer?
Oh,
Uh,
no.
oh,
No. No, it must be somebody like you that is collecting them and then
yeah,
providing them to.
yeah. There's a few. Well, there's about roughly 30 collectors in the United States. Um, it's actually pretty sparse here on the West Coast. There's a lot more on the East Coast because it's a little bit warmer down south. But um, yeah, no, it's very similar. I'm not connected with them, but what happens is there's a lab. How it works is there's a lab in particularly. I think there's a few, but they're all owned by Hollister Steer, and what they do is they contract out um, 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 collectors, and then you go collect the wasps. And if you get the right amount and they give you a quota, you can get a certain amount of value for your bugs. And some people can make the living off of just the wasps, but some can't. So then they have to charge. It just all depends on because you're a business, so you have to figure out how you're going to make your money.
Sure.
But yeah, that's how it works.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I mean, um, we often get calls from people who claim that they have a swarm at their house, but what they actually have are yellow jackets or bald-faced hornets or paper wasps, and they're looking for somebody to remove them for free.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, so sometimes some collectors will do it for free, but only certain species only in certain situations.
Hmm.
So like I have yet to find a collector that, except for me, well, not free though, but that will do a free removal inside of your wall void or attic. Um, but um, but yeah, but that goes to about really understanding, identifying the difference between a wasp and a bee, even for beekeepers. I know this sounds bad, but you'd be surprised how many times I have gotten calls. A beekeeper calls me. I have a swarm in my attic that that went in there and made a home or my crawl space. And I'm like, and they describe it to me. I'm like, that sounds like a yellow jacket. They're like, no, I know my honeybees. I know it's honeybees. I go there, it's yellow jackets. And they're like, "Oh my goodness!" So because I show them, and they're very surprised. So if you're a beekeeper, if you think you really know, make sure you really know that you know the difference. And you can use this recording as that. Make sure you know the difference, so that you don't do something that you shouldn't.
Well, we tried to I mean, our club tries to educate
Yeah,
people
yeah,
about the difference between bees and wasps, mostly because wasps tend to give honeybees a bad name. When
yeah.
people get stung, they
It's
get
true.
stung by wasp or yellow jackets, and then they just generalize as a bee.
Right.
So
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The bee stung
everything
me.
is a
Yeah.
bee.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So anyway, well, it was a really fascinating talk. Thank you very, very much for
You're welcome.
agreeing to be on Ask a Washington Beekeeper. Um, Ellen, do you have any questions?
So I was wondering about the process of gathering the venom. Do you send the insect into the Hollister Steer lab, or do you actually work on the body and send the venom to Hollister? How does this work?
So, definitely I don't do the extraction part. So what I do is I collect the wasps in basically a big mechanical aspirator, basically connected to a vacuum. So it's like a monster version. They get in there, I freeze them, and then once they're frozen, they have to be flash frozen fresh. And then once that's done, then I keep them in the freezer until the end of the season, and then I ship them to the lab. And then they um, take all the yellow jackets they collected throughout the entire nation, and they hire a huge group, and they have to pluck out every single venom sac of each wasp, and they extract the venom out of each venom sac, and then they freeze dry the venom, and then and do that repeatedly for millions of insects of wasps, and yeah, that's how it's done. A lot of work goes into it.
Boy, I mean, it has to be laborious.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm glad I'm not the technician. I think they hire like a group of 500 people, and for 90 days, they just go at it. They just, if that's last time I remember what the number was. Yeah, it's been going on since about the 70s or 60s. It's actually an older process. It's just trying to get more advanced with it. And yeah.
Well, that is very interesting because I was picturing each, time you went out and collected that you would then be dealing with it in some way, sending it off or something, but it didn't think about saving up a season's worth. So,
Yeah, they don't usually I just send it all at once at the end of the year. So I'll have a big giant box of frozen wasps on dry ice and I ship it.
Oh, so you said you keep yellow jackets. Do you keep them in a box?
The live ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not in a box. Sometimes I put them in a hive box at times. Sometimes it works, but no, I like to keep them in a greenhouse. So like for the air area, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take it, I'll remove 80% of the hive or 90% depending on the season. And I'll take 10% of the yellow jackets and I'll put them back with the nest after I removed it. And then I string it up or hot glue it to a bracket in the greenhouse. And there's enough area for them to forage outside the greenhouse. The greenhouse keeps it at a very good temperature for the brood because they require a certain temperature. So while it's open and bald, they reform the paper around it and then they just produce more. And then I keep harvesting throughout the season until they finish their cycle. And then after I'm done, I take all the nest out, and then I experiment. I've been experimenting with turning it into fertilizer, into like a soil. So far, I've been pretty successful. I still have to test it, the soil, but it works really well.
so one other question,
Hmm.
do you have, or do they have, the yellow jackets, any type of diseases or like we have the varroa mite? Do you have an equivalent, that's threatening the yellow jacket?
Yes, I don't know the equivalent of how much it affects the population, but I assume it's going to have to. So far, um, there's two known. There's one other known that I know, and I feel a few other know, and I'm figuring it out still. First, there are funguses that do bother them, but there's a parasitic yellow jacket called Arctica. It is, in fact, I have that yellow jacket that's in my windowsill. It's actually that parasitic yellow jacket because I'm watching it, studying it. Um, they will the parasitic yellow jacket queen will go into an arenaria nest and kill the original queen, and then she basically takes control of the nest, and the original queen's workers then will work for her, and she lays male and gyne eggs so that the workers work for her, and it's not even their genetic pool, not even same species. So it's kind of like a cuckoo bird, or a cuckoo wasp, or a cuckoo bumblebee. It's very similar. The other one is, ironically, wax moth. Very commonly, I've only seen it affect Arenaria. I haven't seen it affect bald-faced hornet or maculata. Um, I've only seen it affect the big paper ball nests, and the wax moth larva will consume the top layer as it tries to finish its cycle, but sometimes it stunts the growth of it quite a bit, and will ruin it. And yeah, so sometimes what can affect honeybees can also affect even yellow jackets is that far. The third one, or was it fourth? I don't remember. Is I believe there's a solitary species of wasp. Don't quote me on it. I'm working on it. But I have this jar right here. It's pub mix, not really. In here, there's this nest was very low in population, so I looked in here, I sealed it off, and it was clean until there's a bunch of solitary wasps in here, and they look like parasitic wasps, and there's a bunch of weird shapes inside of the cells of the nest. So I'm trying to figure that out. I still have to ID them. I think there's other people that know about it. I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm getting there. But yeah, absolutely. There's many things that can affect them.
All right. Well, thank you. That's been really informative.
It
You're
has been
welcome.
really informative. One of our people said, you must have a very patient partner.
She is. She's very incredibly patient. Um, she thinks what I'm doing is really interesting, but she will occasionally go on jobs with me, but she likes to keep a good distance. That's for sure.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't blame her.
That's funny.
Well, thank you
So
once again. Oh, sorry, Ellen, go ahead.
just one last question.
Uh-huh.
How frequently do you get stung when you're out on a job?
Um, I would say I probably get stung once or twice a month. Not too often
Yes.
because I know their behavior so well. I've learned how to avoid to get stung even when I'm not wearing a bee suit. It's usually you get stung when you really don't know what you're doing. Um, at least in my experience. But it's funny, the times I usually get stung the most, um, are when I go to the Arlington Street Fair. It's random, but what I do is I safely put together a live yellow jacket nest in a specialized homemade container. Um, it's safe, don't worry. And so people can walk up close to see a live yellow jacket nest. And uh, when I'm fiddling with it, I have to do things without my bee suit on. That's when I usually end up getting stung. But when I'm removing, that's not it. The only time I get stung the most is the second, I guess, is actually in a crawl space when I'm removing in a crawl space. And there's a yellow jacket in there, and somehow they always find a way to weave in between the bee suit and get just the right spot. Man, they're smart. Find just the right spot and go right there.
Yeah, bees do that too, actually.
Oh, little
Actually,
bugger.
the last time I had an interaction with a wasp, not a yellow jacket, I walked too close to its nest and it came out and bit me. It didn't
Oh,
sting me, it bit me, but
oh.
that was its mistake because I was like, okay, I know you're here. So anyway,
Yeah. It's funny. Only if you could tell them like, if you don't hurt me, I'll leave you alone.
right,
Only if you
right.
can have a conversation.
They're smart, but not that smart.
Correct. Yep. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Alex, for all the interesting information about wasps. Like I said, this will be on Facebook for a while on the page Ask a Washington Beekeeper. And we also download it and put it up on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
We will, for those of you that are out there, have Ask a Washington Beekeeper next month, August, on the third Thursday of the month at 6:30. And I believe we're going to have a WSU assistant professor speak about pesticides and bees. So that should be very interesting as well. And I hope people will join us. That's on August 21st at 6:30. And anyways, I hope everyone has a nice evening and stays cool. Thank you again.